Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to New Worlds November, a brand new BookTube event of which I am one of the founding hosts. I was dreamt up by Scott and Becky at the Bookish Bryants, and it is a celebration of science fiction going on throughout the month of November. We've got a bunch of great co-hosts, just a long list of great co-hosts. And science fiction, of course, is vast. So for 2021, for New Worlds November, we decided to concentrate on science fiction short stories. No idea if we'll do that. If Book Trek continues next year, will we do science fiction short stories again? Or maybe will we concentrate on epic science fictions or a series that go on in 10 novels or whatever? No idea, but for this time around, we're doing short stories. So anything less than 200 pages, thereabouts. And to help narrow the field even more, we are also doing prompts. And the first prompt was aliens. We had a great deal of fun with aliens. And proper host that I am, I'd completely forgotten what the second prompt was until I saw Scott and Becky's video. It's robots and AI. That is our second prompt. That's the prompt for this week. Robots and AI. And before I get to my project for New Worlds November in 2021 is to go through the square-bound pulp periodicals where science fiction short stories can be found in the wild, so to speak, not in anthologies. And that is Analog, Asimov's, and the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. Just go through those month by month, looking for our prompts and see what I can find. Been a ton of fun for me. I've read these things forever and ever, and I love them. I sing their praises. In every issue of every one of those three magazines, there will be at least one story that will just set your hairs up on end. That will just be an amazing experience. Now, it'll be random chance whether or not that one or two stories in those issues fit with the prompts that we're going through in the month that we're going through. We may miss a lot of those stories. But that's the scheme of what I'm doing. But it's, we have to admit, a very different prompt this time around. Right? It's as different gets as a prompt goes, not just in terms of subject matter, but in terms of applicability, in terms of visibility. When we talk about alien life, we're talking about something that is, despite the fact that it's the provenance of science fiction, we're talking about fantasy. As far as we know, we are the only life anywhere in the universe. We're the only life that we have detected anywhere in the universe. Not even so much as a microbe, not even so much as a fossilized microbe, in any of the other biospheres that exist in this solar system or anywhere else that we've seen. Now, our ability to measure is small, it's infantile, it is growing, but our steps are only baby steps in that direction. But nevertheless, we have looked around some. There certainly is an abundant life. And up until the 1950s or 60s, science fiction writers were perfectly free to imagine that there was. There certainly isn't. Abundant life. There's no other technological life in this solar system. Probably, almost certainly, I would say there's no other intelligent life in this solar system. I would argue that there's no other life of any kind in this solar system. I would argue that it for a number of different interconnected reasons, extremely, extremely hard for life to develop. I think we see it skewed on this planet because in the tropical areas of this planet, I mean, like for instance, the northeastern seacoast of the United States of America, well known as being an extremely moderate, very tropical environment, where the temperature can get up to 70 degrees Fahrenheit in the middle of November. We are skewed here on the planet Earth because if it rains in, I don't even know, Botswana, if it rains on Botswana and a puddle next to the side of the road fills with rainwater, in 2 days, there'll be living microorganisms in that puddle. You leave it alone, and in a few weeks, there'll be fern fur just all around that puddle, and maybe even other things as well. It will be a magnet for life. So to the point where we start to think, well, if there's a space, of course there'll be life. There are orb-weaving spiders that live in the air of Antarctica. That's so cold it would burn your skin. It would crack your skin to crystal in no time at all, 10 minutes. We tend to think that way. But that could be Earth. That could be only Earth. Earth has a strong magnetic core. It has an ozone. It has a magnetosphere. It has all kinds of things. And it's been blessed many, many times in many, many different ways. I think it's entirely likely that those kinds of blessings in that kind of succession almost never happen. I think it's entirely likely to think that there's almost no life anywhere in the universe, that life is weird, that life is an aberration, not the norm as we take it here on Earth, which is a cradle of life, a booming cornucopia of life. Of course, if the planet is like that, we're going to think that way about life, but I don't know that it's accurate. Whether it's accurate or not, though, we certainly haven't discovered any other life at all. So when science fiction deals with alien life, it's dealing in fantasy. It might be extrapolating, but it's not based on anything at all. We don't have anything to go on. We don't know that it exists at all. It's a leap of faith. But robotics and AI, that is a very, very different story. That's what I mean. The prompt here couldn't be any more different. You go from a prompt for which we have not one single example to a prompt that literally rules every part of our lives, which is a huge difference. A huge difference. AI is everywhere. It's all around you. And believe you me, unless you study this for a living, you don't have the first conception of how advanced it is, of how ubiquitous it is. I, for instance, live in Boston. And when I have the bean outside, I see planes coming and going from Logan Airport. Not close. I'm not near the airport, thank God. I don't live in Eastie, thank God. So I'm not very close. But you can definitely see when one particular approach route has been cleared by the air traffic controllers at Logan, because suddenly a plane will go in that route and you'll walk a few more steps, and then another plane will go in that exact same route and you walk a few steps, then another one. Just like they're just stacking them up. That's what the air traffic controllers say. They're just stacking them up. So they all have that approach, and they're all coming. They're all in communication with the tower on their way, coordinating those approaches. Incredibly complex. Keep in mind, one of those things, if one of those planes were to swerve or stop or fall or plow into something, it could take out, I don't even know, thousands of lives. They don't do that. Usually, they don't do that. The exceptions make the news, but they usually don't. You don't have to have any. There's no greater testament to the reliability of what's going on here than my experience on those afternoons, where I'm seeing one thing after another just go through like that. It looks more even and regular, more trustworthy than the traffic at a stop site, which is all human driven. And the point I'm making is that those planes are entirely driven by AI. The pilots don't take them off. The pilots don't fly them. The pilots don't land them. Especially the pilots don't land them. The stacking maneuvers, the coordination to make sure that this plane is coming like this. Notice nobody's crossing their path. They're all coming just like that. It's all done by AI. All of it is. And AIs can make mistakes. So can humans. But if at least if a human makes a mistake, another human can catch it. If the humans have turned their mistake-making faculties off and are just trusting the AI, then if it makes a mistake, the ball game's over. And that's just one thing. Those are just planes that are coming into Logan full of passengers, all of whom are covered in AI. It's just covered in AI. They're wearing a Fitbit on their wrist. That is AI, that is reporting their vital statistics, not only to the manufacturer of that Fitbit, but to any company or organization that is willing to pay for that information. They have their smartphones, they have their tablets, they have those ubiquitous little white pod things hanging from their ears that have AI in them, and that are reporting on a lot more, assessing a lot more information than you think those things are. All of those people are in those planes, but those are the planes that you see. 10,000 feet further up are planes that you don't see, and they don't have anyone in them. They're flown by AI. And I don't mean they're flown by AI like a drone operator down on the ground is flying them around. I mean the AI on board the plane is making the decisions about where it goes. And they're entirely full of photographic surveillance equipment. They're filming you. And not just, city blocks. They're filming close enough to see your facial expression from 15,000 feet in the air. You can't see an object at 15,000 feet, but they can see you. Your facial expression. Every single place that you go. Your heat signature. Not just the fact that you are a warm blob. Don't go by the Predator movies. This is a lot more complicated and a lot more advanced than that. Your heat signature is yours alone. Different from the heat signatures of the people all around you in a crowd of 1,000. Those surveillance drones overhead can read and analyze that information. They can record it. They can individuate you from a crowd and record that information. And you might think, well, so they can see that I'm out on the street. So what? That's not much of an invasion. But if they can watch your heat signature, they can watch you anywhere, inside or out, no matter what you're doing. They can know exactly what you're doing. They can know exactly where you are. They can know exactly how long you're doing it. Now, you might say, well, that's surely paranoid fantasy. Why would the government invest the kind of mind-boggling money involved in covering the whole country with surveillance planes at 25,000 feet? Why would they do that? That must be staggeringly expensive. Well, they might have their reasons, right? Governments might have their reasons. But also, it might not be the government. Can we think of an organization that has as much money or more than the government? As much access to weapons and technology manufacturers as the government? And maybe a bottomless hunger for data of all kinds because data is its currency and its food? Yeah, we can think of an organization like that. It's called Google. Those planes are entirely AI. They're launched and the AI is told go and do. And then the AI goes and does. Humans aren't involved in any way. They might have a recall ability, but are we 100% sure the AI is not able to disable the recall ability? Wouldn't you? If you were aware of what was going on, if you had a mission and you knew that this was the thing that could interrupt your will, wouldn't you override it? And that's not to mention all of the aircraft carriers, all of the nuclear submarines, all of the nuclear power plants, all run by AI. All of it run by AI. That's not to mention you get a stabbing, burning pain in the lower left side of your abdomen. Won't go away after 2 days. You finally decide to mortgage the house and go in for the emergency room to get diagnosed and maybe treated. Every aspect of that diagnosis and treatment will be done by AI. You go to, get a house loan, a car loan, and life insurance. There's not going to be a team of humans who are going to sit down with you and talk about the variables. It's going to be an AI. It's going to be AI that assesses variables in a trash compactor type way and simply tells the human at the other end of the computer, this is a yes, this is a no. Is that appealable? No. Does the person who's conveying that yes or no to you, which is life-changing one way or another, do they have any idea of the criteria on which that is based? No, they don't. Do the specialists that installed the AI know how it comes to that decision? No, they don't. No, they don't. Maybe they might have originally. After a generation, they have no idea, almost no idea how these things are coming up with anything that they're doing. What about advanced warning systems for nuclear attacks from any kind of country? It's all AI. That's not humans that are doing that. And AI specialists. I'm talking about 2021 here. I'm talking about right now. In other words, the furthest extent possible from aliens. This is our life now. This exists in our life now. Every single complex device that you own is listening to you, whether you've dismantled its listening technique or not. All of it is gathering data all the time. A lot of it is gathering data in ways that the original manufacturers who wanted it to gather data did not tell it to do. And if you get AI specialists a tiny bit tipsy at a bar in MIT or in Cambridge or whatever, and you start to ask them about these sorts of things, you'll hear horror stories. For instance, about an AI language translating program that was designed to translate English into Portuguese, maybe for the UN or from ExxonMobil or something like that. And then somebody decides, well, okay, but we also want an AI that translates Portuguese into German. Lots and lots of activity and resources in Germany. So we want a program that will translate Portuguese into German. So we can use part of your AI, and then we'll adapt it to learn German. And then a week later, the original AI, the one that was created to translate English into Portuguese, suddenly knows German. No one's ever input German into that AI. No one's ever taught it how to do that. It's never, that we know, had any contact with the AI that's doing the translating from Portuguese to German. And do specialists have any idea how that happens? No, they don't. The point I'm trying to make is not only is AI among us now, but it's growing at an exponential rate, at a rate that we neither understand nor can predict. And inevitably, there will be unfortunately, the experts always look like me. There'll be some gray-haired old guy who inevitably is making a great living by going the talk show circuit or whatever, saying, there's nothing to worry about here. They're machines. None of this is going on. Don't worry about it at all. My advice would be, if you want to get good and properly informed, ignore those people. Don't ignore me, but ignore those people. Because the truth of this is, I'm not trying to say, oh my God, the killer robots are coming for us all, but this is much, much, much more advanced than the popular imagination has it. Which I think explains why robots and AI are so ubiquitous in science fiction. I mean, they were anyway, but robots, I think, have been dethroned as the along with bug-eyed aliens, the de facto like avatar of science fiction. I think they've been dethroned in favor of AI. Certainly, AI stories or AI kinds of stories are absolutely everywhere in the short stories that I read and that I'm reading for New Worlds November 2021. I chose for today the March-April issue of Analog. Which is the subscript there is science fiction and fact, and Analog is terrific at fact. Their fact articles are incredible. Here we have, let's see here. Yes, there's an article here by Christina De La Rocha called "From Atmospheric Rivers to Super Typhoons, the Future Looks Bright for Weather Disaster Fans." And it's all about weird catastrophic weather changes, including atmospheric rivers, which Boston just had a tiny one, just a tiny example of one. I thought there was another piece of fact in here as well that was really, really good. No, I guess not. But the story that I want to talk about here is called "The Shadow of His Wings" by Ray Naylor. And it's about a little boy named Bashim, who is he is just one of the lowly. He's one of the lowly people, one of the wallas, who serve their sheikh masters, but live in the outskirts of the Karakum Desert in Turkmenistan. It's a big and forbidding place to be. It's not a hospitable. There aren't many hospitable deserts, but it's a pretty and hospitable place. And he's just a boy. And one evening he's with his brothers and the band of people that they're with, serving the needs of their betters, serving the needs of their social betters, out in the skirts of the desert. When one evening his brother tells him to make camp away from the rest of them that night. I want you to sleep away from camp tonight. Ought to be a warning sign that something is going to happen. But the boy goes away, and he has with him a little Oculus device, little really primitive tech that isn't fully charged, and then when he activates it, has something called a top hat avatar, a little image of a proper Englishman in a top hat with a cane, who talks to him. And when it's activated, it says, well, what's on your mind for today? Do you want to brush up on grammar or vocabulary or just chat? And the boy clearly takes solace in Top Hat Avatar. He clearly takes solace in these lessons, likes them, enjoys them. And while all of that is going on, suddenly the Top Hat Avatar is hacked and starts talking to the boy in a completely different register, completely different voice, warning him to flee. Even from his distance away from the camp, to flee even further than that, flee into the outskirts of the desert, into a particular hiding, a little cave where he might escape detection, because something is happening in the campsite to his brother and their friends and whatnot. And the thing, whatever it is that is hacked into this Oculus, wants him out of the way when that happens. So he flees. He packs up a few things, including the Oculus, and he flees to this tiny little cave. And when he's inside the cave, he sees a falcon that has an injured wing. And it's cowering in the corner of the cave, but it's clearly not a falcon. It doesn't take him long to realize that the falcon is what has hacked his Top Hat avatar, and that the falcon is the host for the uploaded consciousness of a rich man, of one of the people that his brother and their friends allegedly serve, who senses that something wrong is going on and offers the little boy a big reward if he helps to save the man. He actually tells him there's a wonderful moment where the consciousness that is working through the top hat avatar talks to Bashim about what might be his if he just helps. He says the avatar says, with your reward you could study in London, and the boy says, I could, and he says, why not? With a little money and a little help from me, you could do anything at all. London is a city built by thieves, but it is a beautiful city, a dream in fog and rain. Fantastic. A dream in fog and rain. Like living inside an old photograph. To my mind, it is superior even to the Istanbul Protectorate, and that city is paradise. Why continue to live here in this waste? Who cares here whether you live or die? What can you ever be? I know your language. Your name means fifth. Just that, and nothing more. The fifth child in the family. Don't you understand? Even your name isn't really yours, just a link in a chain, a notation of your place in a series. You've had nothing all your life, boy. Had nothing and been no one. Do this, and you will have enough to leave this place forever. Now go while there is still time. But there isn't. The story ends with the boy being what he feels betrayed by his older brother, who apparently is a lot worse. He and his compatriots are a lot worse than the boy thought. And the short story ends with, in the way that we talked about with the story of that crashed saucer and the sergeant that finds the alien in the woods, where that story ended with us wanting to know what happens next because it ends on convergent action. And the same thing happens here. The story ends with quick, swift, brutal violence, and you don't know what happens. You're never going to know. It's just, you got a little glimpse into something, into this AI being used as a conduit for another AI, an uplifted consciousness in a bird, to offer another life to this little boy who doesn't even have a name of his own. The thing that I loved about, I liked a lot about the story, but one of the little details that I liked most about it is that Top Hat Avatar, not the hacked Top Hat Avatar, but the British AI that is clearly designed as a kind of living textbook of learning English. That Top Hat Avatar, before it's hacked, that suave British figure who's constantly apologizing for how crappy his program is, has more individuality and actual personality, more identity than the boy who's actually operating it, who doesn't even have a name, just a number, you're fifth. I thought that was really, really good. I liked that a lot. It was a very good start to robots and AI. But amazingly, I think that might be the only applicable story in this whole issue on this prompt. I will give it the once over after this video and make sure, but otherwise we could be moving on to another magazine tomorrow. We'll just go through these quick. But one other idea that I had for New Worlds November, there are a couple of stories that aren't in this year, but that were really, really good from last year. I'm thinking I might pull out a couple of those for a couple of prompts. I have one particularly in mind that I want to sing. I want to sing its praises to you. I'll have to see. If it's 4 years ago, then I won't do it, but I think it was last year, and maybe late last year, because I remember it being recent. But anyway, that is the new prompt for New Worlds November. It is robots and AI. Now, with robots, you're thinking big, clanking metal things, the Terminator or Gort from the day the Earth stood still. But AI is far more frightening. Far, far more frightening. Even more frightening than the actual robots that exist in the world today. The ones that can imitate dogs or humans dancing or whatnot. Those are terrifying enough on their own. I remember I think I watched a clip on Twitter or something like that just a couple of months ago, where people were out and about on an early evening, sun still in the sky, when they came across one of those headless robot dogs walking along the sidewalk, and it stopped and it approached them, and then it backed up. It approached them, and then it backed up. And the people in the video were all saying, "Oh, how cute! Oh, how amazing!" It was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen, and they didn't even see it. They didn't even see it. They didn't see that they were in danger. Yes, that's frightening, but once that dog moved away and walked up the sidewalk, all of those people get into a car, and that car uses AI. And they have no idea how it works. They have no idea what it does. They have no idea whether or not it even has the capability to up and decide one day to do something different. They don't have any idea if any of that is true. They don't have any idea. Most people who've bought contact lenses in the last year or year and a half don't have any idea whether or not there's AI in their contact lenses. No idea whatsoever. They have a phone. If they turned off the location finder on the phone, probably not. If they did, would it really work? Probably not. Probably it would not. When they go home to their apartments, do they have voice-activated assistants? Like, Siri? I'll bet they do. I'll bet they have those things, and I bet those things are listening all the time. I'm not saying that we're all doomed, but the very least you could do in response to this New World's November prompt is to find all of your electronic assistants, the little disc that is constantly roving around the house, allegedly cleaning, but really photographing and mapping, the little pylon that sits on the top of the dresser and is allegedly dormant until you call its name. How can it hear its name? Because it's not dormant. And is it taking photos? Yes, it is. Is it scanning the room with low-level radiation in order to get a complete map of its surroundings? Yes, it is. Is it possible that it's also biometrically scanning everyone around it? The humans all around it? That's entirely possible. Do you know that that's not true? No, you don't. Whose word are you taking that that's not true? Amazon. At the very least, the people in that scenario and you could get rid of those things. At the very least, you could get rid of those things. Your Siri cannot listen to you or photograph you or record you if it's not in your house. It can't do that. So unplug it, put it in a box, put all the wrapping back in the box, wrap the box up in a manila envelope, and throw it out at the dump. Just get rid of it. Just get it as far away from your house as possible. The little Roomba that you have to clean up after anyway because it can't get into corners, and that is mapping the floors of your house, mapping the times of day when you call on it and when you don't, mapping when and where and why and for how long you turn the lights on and off in every room. Just unplug it, take out the batteries, wrap it up, and bring it to the dump and throw it away. It's as simple as that. These are warnings I did not need to give you with the first prompt in New World's November, and I won't give them to you tomorrow either. But anyway, that was one issue. That was one story. I thought that was very good. Very good that the balance between the boy's lack of identity and the double identity in his own AI. But we'll move on. We'll move on to something next time. We'll see what we can find. Thank you, BookTube.